You are tired, and maybe you don't even know exactly why, but you feel it. It's there, like a quiet, invisible weight pressing on your shoulders, a sense that you have to keep everything balanced. Please everyone, avoid conflict, be kind, be understanding, be polite. You were taught early on that being a good person was the right thing to do, that the good guys win in the end, that if you're generous, people will treat you well in return, that if you're humble, the world will eventually reward you. But what if all of that is a lie, a comfortable lie, taught to keep you obedient, predictable, controllable? How many times have you stayed quiet just to avoid upsetting someone? How many times have you swallowed your truth, your pride, your needs, to protect someone else's comfort? You smiled. You said, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. You sacrificed your voice in the name of peace. You erased yourself in the name of being good. Let me say this plainly. The world does not reward the kind. It rewards the strategic. If you're listening to this, you already know that on some level. You've felt it. You've seen how the more you try to be accepted, the less you're respected. The more you give, the more people expect. The more patient you are, the more they test you. And that's when you begin to wonder if being a good person is really the path to a good life. This is where Machiavelli enters, not as a villain, but as someone who dared to speak the truth that society tries so hard to silence. He saw clearly what most people deny, that pure morality, detached from reality, is a trap, that being seen as good is not the same as being respected, as being powerful, as being free. In this series, we are going to take off the mask. We are going to break the spell. No more illusions, no more lies. This is not about becoming cold. It's about waking up. Waking up from the childish dream that virtue alone is enough. Because as long as you keep living to be liked, you'll remain in someone else's hands, a prisoner of your own kindness. And if you're already tired of being used, ignored, taken for granted, then this is your invitation. To change, to take back control, to learn what they never taught you. Are you ready? Then let's begin. Do you still believe the world rewards good people? Look around. Who holds power? Who gets respect? Who commands the room? Are they the kindest, the most generous, the most patient? Or are they the ones who speak with certainty, set boundaries, and demand attention? The truth is hard, but it's real. The world doesn't operate on kindness. It operates on leverage, on usefulness, on perception. Machiavelli understood this long before you or I were born. He didn't glorify cruelty. He exposed reality. And one of the truths he laid bare is this: being good is not enough. In fact, being good can get you discarded. You can be loyal, supportive, patient, and still be replaced the moment you're no longer useful. You can give your best to others, and the second they no longer benefit from you, they'll walk away without guilt, without thanks, without a second thought. Why? Because your worth in this system is measured by your impact, not your intention. Have you ever noticed? The nice ones are always chasing, trying to prove they deserve space, explaining themselves, justifying their feelings. While the bold ones, the ones who speak with clarity, who say no without guilt, they're respected, they're followed, they're heard. Why? Because people respond to presence, not apologies. Because blind kindness looks like weakness, and weakness isn't respected. It's used. That's the game. And as long as you play by rules that others don't even acknowledge, you will keep losing. This isn't about abandoning kindness. It's about refusing to be consumed by it. It's about seeing that your silence, your endless patience, your tolerance for disrespect does not make you virtuous. It makes you invisible. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Why? Because fear implies consequence, and people only respect those they know cannot be stepped on without reaction. Ask yourself this: when you're always agreeable, always sweet, always saying yes, what are you teaching people? You're teaching them that your needs don't matter, that you can be ignored, that there's no cost to crossing you. That's not kindness. That's surrender. So here's the truth. If you don't set your own value, the world will set it for you, and it will always set it low. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the cost of pleasing everyone, and why every time you erase yourself to be accepted, you move further from your own freedom. You feel that tension inside? Good. That's your signal, your soul trying to come back to life. Let's keep going. If this message resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and join the channel. Thank you for being here. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you disappear a little. Every time you silence your opinion to avoid disappointing someone, you train the world to ignore you. You do it to keep the peace, to avoid rejection, to protect an image. But what is that image costing you? You've become the one who's always there, the one who's always kind, the one who's always flexible. But here's the reality. People don't thank you for being easy to deal with. They expect it. And then they demand more. You think they'll appreciate you if you're just a little more giving, a little more forgiving, a little more patient. But no matter how much you give, it's never enough. And worse, you begin to resent it. You feel the pressure building inside. You feel the weight of being the one who carries everyone else's comfort at the expense of your own. This is the hidden tax of being a people pleaser. It's not obvious. It doesn't show up in your bank account, but it shows up in your anxiety, in your exhaustion, in your quiet rage. You don't explode, you erode. Slowly, silently, tragically. You tell yourself this is what it means to be a good person, to always understand, to always forgive, to never cause discomfort. But good for who? Good for them? Or good for you? What you call kindness, they call convenience. What you call patience, they call availability. What you call loyalty, they call control. You're not being seen. You're being used, and you're participating in it. That's the cost of pleasing everyone. You betray yourself to win approval that never lasts. So ask yourself, when did you learn that love had to be earned? That being accepted meant being silent? That being safe meant being small? You weren't born this way. It was taught, rewarded, conditioned. But just because you learned it doesn't mean you have to keep living it. In the next chapter, we'll bring Machiavelli back into focus. Not as a villain, but as a mirror. Because the prince doesn't teach cruelty. It teaches awareness. And once you understand the game, you're no longer a pawn in it. Let's move forward. It's time to see what they never wanted you to understand. You've heard the name before, Machiavelli, and probably with a warning. Manipulative, evil, cold. But that's not the truth. That's the myth. Niccolò Machiavelli wasn't a monster. He was a realist. He didn't invent power games. He exposed them. He didn't encourage cruelty. He explained why it exists. The Prince isn't a book about domination. It's a survival manual, written for those who are being crushed by a world that rewards appearance over integrity. Machiavelli said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Let that land. People don't react to your truth. They react to your image. They respond to what you project, not what you intend. You might have a heart of gold, but if you present yourself as weak, you'll be treated that way. You might have deep wisdom, but if you stay silent, you'll be overlooked. You might mean well, but if you don't know how to assert yourself, you will be ignored. That's what Machiavelli taught. Not how to harm, how to serve. He wrote in a world full of betrayal, manipulation, and hidden motives. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said, "This is the game, and if you want to play, you'd better understand the rules." One of his most powerful metaphors was this: a leader must be like both the fox and the lion. The fox sees the traps. The lion scares off the wolves. If you're only the fox, you'll be devoured. If you're only the lion, you'll fall into every trap. But if you're both, you see clearly and you stand firmly. That's the balance. That's the lesson. That's the truth. You were never taught. You were told to be the lamb. But no one warned you that wolves respect only wolves. This doesn't mean abandoning morality. It means anchoring your morality in strength, not in submission. Being good without strategy is just a slower way to be used, to be erased, to be punished by a world that doesn't reward purity. It rewards power. And that power? It's not about hurting others. It's about refusing to let others keep hurting you. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about what your niceness might really be hiding. Because before you can build real power, you have to uncover what's been keeping it buried. Get ready. The mask is about to come off. You tell yourself you're kind. You believe you're empathetic, compassionate, understanding. And maybe you are. But maybe you're also afraid. Afraid to say what you think. Afraid to draw a line. Afraid to upset someone. You call it patience, but it's fear of conflict. You call it tolerance, but it's fear of rejection. You call it goodness, but it's fear of being seen as selfish. Let's be honest. What you've been calling kindness has too often been a mask, a strategy for safety, a way to feel accepted in a world that made you terrified of standing alone. Since childhood, you were rewarded for being easy to manage, for being quiet, polite, obedient. You learned that being good meant being agreeable, and being agreeable meant being loved. But love built on obedience is not love. It's control. You sacrificed your fire to protect their comfort. You buried your voice to avoid their disappointment. And now you wonder why you feel lost, why you feel resentful, why you feel like a ghost in your own life. You adapted to survive, and there is no shame in that. But survival is not the same as freedom. To be truly free, you have to tell the truth. First to yourself, then to the world. And here's the truth. Your kindness was never meant to cost you yourself. Kindness isn't about abandoning your needs. It's not about saying yes to everything. It's not about enduring disrespect just to avoid uncomfortable moments. That's not kindness. That's fear. And fear is not your identity. You are allowed to speak. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to be firm. even when it makes others uncomfortable, even when it breaks the role you've always played. Because if your role is killing you, it's not worth playing anymore. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about what happens when you wake up, but overcorrect. When you confuse power with detachment, strength with cruelty. There is a middle path, one where you can keep your heart and still reclaim your spine. Let's find it together. When you finally wake up, when you see how much of your life has been shaped by fear, submission, and the desire to please, something powerful happens. But something dangerous can happen too. You swing to the other extreme. You go from being the one who says yes to everything to saying no to everyone. From always giving to giving nothing at all. From overly warm to deliberately cold. This is what we call the rebound trap. It feels like strength, but really, it's just the opposite mask. You're not empowered. You're still reacting, still building your identity based on what others did to you. And now, instead of being invisible, you become untouchable. Instead of being kind, you become defensive. Instead of disappearing, you attack first. Why? Because you're trying to protect what was never protected before. Your heart, your voice, your dignity. But you don't have to destroy your softness to reclaim your power. You don't have to be cruel to stop being submissive. The opposite of self-erasure is not emotional shutdown. It's self-possession, self-awareness, self-command. You don't need to become heartless to stop being helpless. You don't need to cut people off just to prove you're no longer afraid. You just need to stop handing over your power to avoid feeling uncomfortable. The rebound trap feels good at first. It feels like control, like confidence, like clarity. But it's still fear, just wearing a tougher mask. And the worst part? It isolates you. You start to lose connection, not just with others, but with yourself. Because coldness isn't your nature, it's your armor. And armor is heavy. It protects, yes, but it also keeps love out, keeps joy out, keeps life out. So here's the shift. You don't need to harden. You need to anchor. Anchor yourself in truth, in clarity, in boundaries. But keep your heart. That's where your real power lives. In the next chapter, we'll talk about how to say no without guilt, how to disappoint others without betraying yourself. Because learning to set boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Let's keep going. No is one of the smallest words in the language, but for many of us, it's the hardest to say. Because somewhere along the way, we were taught that saying no meant we were bad, selfish, inconsiderate, unkind. But that was a lie. Taught to keep you compliant. Taught to make sure you put everyone else first. Taught to make you manageable. You don't feel guilty when you breathe, or when your heart beats, or when you blink. Why? Because they're natural, automatic, essential. Saying no should be just as natural, because it's how you protect your energy, your time, your life. But most people wait. Wait until they're exhausted. Wait until they're resentful. Wait until they've already said yes. One too many times. And when they finally say no, it comes out sharp, explosive, heavy with frustration. Because it's not just a no, it's a cry for boundaries that were never respected. Let's make this simple. You don't need a reason to say no. You don't need an excuse. You don't need permission. No is a complete sentence. You're allowed to say, "No, I'm not available. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not comfortable with that." Without explaining, justifying, or apologizing. Because every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to something that could build you. And here's the truth. The people who truly respect you will understand your no. The ones who get angry, push back, or guilt trip you, they're the ones who benefited from your silence. Saying no isn't rejection. It's self-respect. It's emotional clarity. It's your right. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. The quieter the guilt becomes, and the stronger you feel. Remember, if your boundaries make someone uncomfortable, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because they were comfortable crossing you. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what happens when you stop living for approval and start building your life from a place of authenticity. That's the shift from pleasing to power, and it changes everything. Let's continue. Something shifts the moment you stop asking for permission to exist, the moment you stop molding yourself to fit into spaces you were never meant to shrink into. This is where real power begins, not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that finally anchors you in yourself. You stop asking, "Did I say that the right way? Did I make them uncomfortable? Did I do enough?" And you start asking, "Was I honest? Was I clear? Was I true to myself?" You stop seeking validation. You start radiating presence. People feel it. They sense the change. They may not say it out loud, but the energy is different. They hesitate before crossing you. They listen more carefully when you speak, not because you became louder, but because you became solid. That's the difference between pleasing and power. One is reactive, the other is rooted. When you live to please, you shapeshift, you dilute, you disappear. When you stand in power, you choose, you direct, you protect. And it's not about ego. It's not about superiority. It's about finally refusing to abandon yourself. You don't need everyone to like you. You just need to stop betraying yourself to be liked. Not everyone will understand your shift. Some people will say you've changed, and they'll be right. You changed the terms. You changed the rules. You changed the game. And people who were comfortable with your silence won't know what to do with your voice. That's okay. You're not here to stay small. You're not here to manage other people's expectations. You're here to lead your own life. Power doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means your kindness is a choice, not a performance. It means your boundaries are sacred, not negotiable. It means your time is precious, not up for grabs. This is where it all changes. This is where you finally step out of the role of pleaser and into the role of author. You write the terms now. You define the limits. You shape your life. In our final chapter, we'll talk about the choice that defines everything. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? Let's finish what we started. Let's be brutally honest. How long have you been pretending? Pretending to be okay. Pretending to be agreeable. Pretending that all the self-sacrifice was worth it. You wore the mask so well, you almost forgot it was there. You convinced yourself that this is who you are. Always patient, always nice, always available. But deep down, you know better. You feel the anger, the exhaustion, the quiet scream inside. Because living to be loved eventually becomes a prison. A cage decorated with compliments, lined with unspoken resentment. You were never meant to live on your knees. You were never meant to earn your worth by shrinking yourself. Here's the truth no one told you. No one is going to free you. No one is going to say, "Thank you for all your sacrifices. You've done enough." you may rest now. That moment doesn't come, because as long as you offer yourself up, there will always be someone willing to take. This isn't pessimism, it's reality. And reality doesn't bend to your good intentions. It responds to your decisions, to your boundaries, to your self-respect. You can keep living to be liked, to be chosen, to be safe. But if you do, prepare for a life of frustration, of quiet bitterness, of being overlooked, underappreciated, and emotionally exhausted. Or you can wake up, right now. You can decide that your voice matters, that your peace matters, that you matter, even when you say no. You don't have to abandon your kindness. You just have to stop weaponizing it against yourself. You don't have to stop being generous. You just have to stop giving what you never receive. You don't have to stop being understanding. You just have to stop making yourself invisible to be understood. And now, you face the question that defines everything. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? Because love built on obedience is not love. It's quiet slavery. But freedom is the fire that lights your path back to yourself. And once you taste it, you'll never want to live on your knees again. So I'll ask you, when was the last time you did something entirely for yourself, without asking for approval? When was the last time you said no and felt proud, not guilty? When was the last time you felt powerful, not because others agreed with you, but because you finally agreed with yourself? Tell me. Speak it out loud. Write it down. Because this isn't just your story, it's ours. And maybe, just maybe, your truth will be the spark that wakes someone else up. Thank you for listening, for staying with yourself this long, for choosing honesty over comfort. This was never about being cold. It was about becoming clear. And you are. You're clearer than ever. The journey isn't over. It's just beginning.